Mr. Dick Wells is going to talk to us about property tax reform.
I've been working on property tax reform since the 80s. There's a lot about taxes that people don't understand. And particularly in this case now, we're talking about property tax. Most of you are homeowners. Is that not right? Homeowners? Huh?
I wish.
Well, you're home renters.
That's true.
And if you don't believe it, don't pay the rent and see what happens. They'll kick you out, get somebody else that will pay the rent.
True.
Now, the Montana State Constitution, with all its faults, is in compliance with the intent of the Declaration of Independence. Some of you will recall the second paragraph of the Declaration. You hear it recited time and time again. I heard one congressman say, it's in the preamble to the Constitution. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that's where they stopped with their quotation. Well, I'm here to tell you that they leave the punchline off because it continues on to say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Not the will of the people, but the consent of the governed. And there you have two things. The sole legitimate purpose for government in this country, and the essence of the Republican form of government. Now, the Montana Constitution is in compliance with that declaration. Article 2, Section 3 lists inalienable rights. Inalienable rights are listed, and among those rights that are secured by our Constitution in Montana, it says acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. But if you can lose your home or any of your property because you failed to pay a tax, that says that wasn't really an inalienable right. Now, the thing that I want you to focus on is not so much what we will replace the tax with, but the goal. Establish the goal for yourself, for the people that represent you in Helena, to restore the right to own property in accordance with the Montana Constitution. And when you do that, you're going to bring Montana into compliance with its own Constitution. Now, the Bill of Rights says that private property shall not be taken without just compensation. That's Article 5 of the Bill of Rights. But if they take your home or any of your property because you fail to pay tax and they don't give you anything in return, they've violated the Bill of Rights. Now, I've written a bill at Greg Henkel's request to accomplish this. It's a draft. It'll probably be much different than what I wrote, but there are representatives that have agreed to carry this bill. And when it gets to the Senate, Greg says he'll sponsor it. I won't go into the bill at this time, but I'll tell you basically what the important thing to bear in mind about the kind of tax that I anticipate will take the place of the property tax. And I call it an excise tax. And I see a great similarity between what I propose and what we already have. When you buy fuel, there's a tax on it. It's already there. If you smoke, your cigarettes are taxed with an excise tax. If you drink booze, that's got an excise tax on it. And there are maybe a dozen things that you can have come to mind easily that bear these taxes. If you hunt or fish, everything you buy has a 12% tax, an excise tax. And when was the last time you heard anybody complain about that kind of tax? Probably never. Because the tax compels no performance and places no one in harm's way. And so with this kind of thinking then, I propose that we replace the property tax with that kind of tax that puts no one in harm's way or compels no one to perform. You don't have to keep any records, make any reports. You know, the most onerous thing about taxes, as far as I am concerned, personally, is that my servant is poised to call me liar and thief and he's talking about my money. I work for it. We need to be able to have first call on the fruit of our labor. And you have to recognize that when we talk about property taxes, that wages are property, therefore not to be taxed. I just quoted the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, there's a benefit that we will achieve when we abolish the property tax across the board in Montana. When business learns that there are no property taxes in Montana, they will flock here. And what will that mean to us?
Jobs.
Employment, yes.
Jobs.
Now, for a long, long while, I was uninterested in doing anything for the corporations. Because corporations, by any other name, are the creature of government, created by government to serve the public. Why should we worry about that? Well, I've been working with people, talking with people, and they're sharing their ideas with me, and I am persuaded that we need to take the property tax completely out of the picture in Montana, and we will see our economy grow rapidly. Now, let me read to you an excerpt from the Federalist Papers, number 21, by Alexander Hamilton. This is what he had to say about a tax on consumption. Imposts, excises, and in general, all duties upon articles of consumption may be compared to a fluid which will, in time, find its level with the means of paying them. The amount to be contributed by each citizen will in a degree be at his own option and be regulated by an attention to his resources. The rich may be extravagant, the poor can be frugal. The private oppression may always be avoided by a judicious selection of objects proper for such impositions. It is a signal advantage of taxes on articles of consumption that they contain in their own nature a security against excesses. They prescribe their own limit, which cannot be exceeded without defeating the end proposed, that is, an extension of the revenue. When applied to this object, the saying is just as it is witty that in political arithmetic 2 and 2 do not always equal 4. If duties are too high, they lessen the consumption. The collection is eluded. And the product to the Treasury is not so great as when they are confined within proper and moderate bounds. This forms a complete barrier against any material oppression of the citizens by taxes of this class, and is itself a natural limitation on the power of imposing them. I want to share one last thought with you. What makes this country great?
Freedom. People.
For the first time in the history of modern man, the individual's life, liberty, and property are taken as a sacred trust for government to protect. And there would be nothing in our laws that would make us fear our government. This is true in no other country. Thank you.
A bill to restore the Montana Constitution secured inalienable right to own property, sponsored by Gordon Hendrick, House District 14, will come before a legislative committee before long. If you are concerned that the property tax removes your right to own property and want to repeal the tax, show your support by joining others on a bus chartered to Helena when the bill comes before a committee. If you are unable to travel, you can sponsor one or more people to go in your stead at $20 per person. The Montana Constitution is on your side. To wit, Article 2, Section 3, Inalienable Rights, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. Moreover, the section concludes thus: in enjoying these rights, all persons recognize corresponding responsibilities. Those responsibilities are to exercise and protect those rights. The Supreme Court of the United States said it another way in Miranda v. Arizona. Whereas substantive rights are secured by the Constitution, there can be no legislation or rulemaking that would abrogate them. Supporters will have an opportunity to sign on as supporting the measure. Depending on how many approach the committee, time may be limited for those offering testimony. Usually time allotted is 5 minutes or less. Therefore, you might consider writing your property rights support statement to the committee as a backup measure. It is unknown at this time when the bill will come before committee. However, we will probably have 3 or 4 days' notice. For more information, or to show your support and travel to Helena for other important bills, you may call 827-7413.